Okay guys, we're going to record a quick video here to show you how to change a guitar string. We've been talking about it here in the National Guitar Academy HQ for the last half an hour or so, trying to work out how we're going to do this, and we thought the easiest way is if Andy just grabs the GoPro and I'll just show you how to do it. And it might look a bit nasty, the video might be a bit jerky and stuff, but it means that we'll be able to get right in and see the neck really clearly, so hopefully it's useful. Okay, right, I'm going to show you how to change the string on an acoustic guitar. Obviously it'll vary if you're using an electric or a bass, but the principle will stay the same. So we'll give it a shot, right? So first things first, you need to make sure that you've got the tools that you need for changing the strings. So the only thing really that's essential is a pair of pliers, or if you have it, a string winder. String winders are really cool because they have pliers built in into the handle here. Well, some have pliers built into the handle, and it just means that you can wind the strings much faster. It's not essential, but they are handy. If you don't have a string winder, then a pair of pliers will do the job. So the first thing we need to do is release the tension in the string. This is really important because if we don't take the tension out of the string, then what's going to happen is as you take the string off the neck, it's going to whip around. And it's the only real way that you can get hurt doing this. So it's really important that we take the tension out of the string. So I'm going to start on this E string here. So I'm going to just turn the tuning peg down. There you go. And you can see now that the string is really flappy. Okay? So there's no tension in there, so there's nothing to worry about. So now I'm going to set this down. I'm going to take the peg out of the bottom here. And to do this, I'm going to use this notched area of the string winder. It might not actually work on this guitar because this has got a slightly countersunk pegs here on the bridge, but we'll give it a try. So the notch part of it goes in here, and then we just lever that up, and I hope you can see that that's coming free. We might need to use the pliers here, but we'll give it a shot. There we go. So then we just lift that peg out, and you'll notice that that peg's got like a sort of groove or a rebate running down the middle, and that's where the string sits in. Okay, so now we're going to lift this string out, so that one comes away. I'm going to put the peg down here next to me, and then we'll take this string out, and down at this end now we can loosen it off here and just lift that out. Just be careful with these ends, they can be sharp, they can actually cut your finger or snag your clothes or whatever. So this needs to go straight in the bin. Okay, and then we get our new string. Now, depending on where you got your strings from, they usually come in like packs of in pairs. So I just happen to be doing the 6th string here, but sometimes they come sort of individually wrapped. Doesn't really make any difference. Just make sure that you get the right one. Obviously, the 6th string is the thickest string, and to put this on the guitar, we basically need to do what we did before in reverse. So we're going to feed this loop then through. Just put it through a bit, doesn't really matter how far it goes through as long as there's enough, because we can always pull it tight in a moment. Then we get our peg that we had, we put the rebate of the peg there on the string, and at this point we can take out any slack. So I can still slide that back and forth, but if I put that in, I can pull this up until it gets tight, and then I want to press that down with my thumb. Now usually you can just do that sort of hand tightness. They're not that hard to put in. You don't need to use a hammer or anything, you know, you can just use your hand there. Okay, so now we get to the tricky bit. We're going to head down to the other end of the guitar. And what we're going to do here is we need to feed this string here through this hole. Now if you have a look here on the neck, you'll see there's a hole on each side where this can go through. But a lot of this is just kind of flapping. The string is just loose and flapping, as you can see. And we don't need a lot of this stuff. It's just going to take up room, and it's also going to make it longer to tune up the guitar. So what I do is I snip off the excess off the string. So what I'm going to do here is just use a hand's width, which is just something that I've sort of taught my students over the years, just works well. So from here until the other side of my hand, that's about how much we need. So to about where my thumb is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put my finger there, and then I'm going to get my trusty string winder, but you could also use a pair of pliers if you preferred, and I'm just going to snip off the excess. Okay, so this stuff here we don't need. That's just excess, because of course some guitar necks are longer than others. So you get these strings and they have more than they need. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed this through the hole. Now this is fiddly, this bit, so let's see if we can capture this. I'm just going to put the string through just a little. I don't want it to be through too much because this is sharp, you know, it can snag on clothes and whatnot. So I'm going to just put it through just a tiny bit. And now this is important. What you need to do is kink the string. Now the way I do this is I put my finger here and I keep the string through and I just move my finger around. And literally all I'm doing is creating a kink, a bend in the string. So I hope you can see that I kept tension on that there. And that's very important because it stops the string from slipping through. Another important point here is that you'll notice that I've bent round this way into the neck. I'm bending into the middle. And that's important because you want the strings to always be on the middle side of the peg. So these three here go in this way. And can you see how these three here are strung in this way? So then I'm just going to keep the tension there on that string. You can see I'm keeping that really tight. It can be very loose down here, but it has to be tight here at the top. I'm going to keep that tension. I'm going to keep my thumb there. And the reason I'm keeping that tension and the reason I'm holding my thumb there is because if I release it, the string will want to unravel. That's not too much of a problem on these strings up here at the top, but on these three strings, especially these two, the string will want to unravel very quickly. So that's why I've kept that tension there. So you can see how I've wrapped that round. I've not got loads here. I've not got too little. There's just a nice amount of string there that's left over. And now what I need to do is tighten the string. But when I do that, I'm keeping the tension here. I'm keeping my finger pressing down again to stop the string from unraveling. So now I'm going to get my string winder, and the string winder just fits over the tuning peg, the tuning key at the top, and then I'm just tightening up the string. And what this is doing is saving me ages of going like this, turning this around. Using a string winder is a huge time saver. So now what I'm doing here is just tightening the string up. Now as soon as you can hear that the string is getting slightly tighter, so if I come away there, if you just step back a bit, Andy, and we'll just try and get the body in here. So this is the point where, this is the only point where things go wrong for beginner guitarists, in my experience, is that most people can kind of blunder through all of the other steps up until this point. But at this point now, this is where things can go a bit pear-shaped. So be careful that you don't tune the string up too much, because the string will snap. And then you've kind of written off a pack of strings there. So we were talking about it before, and we think probably the easiest way to do this is as soon as you can get a note that you can kind of hear. So you saw before the string was just really flappy. It didn't even really make a note. As we've tightened it, the tension has increased. So we've got a note. As soon as you can hear that note, get a tuner and tune up to E from there. Now, in terms of tightness, you should be able to comfortably get your first finger underneath the 12th fret. Now, the 12th fret usually has 2 dots. So if you put your finger under there, my finger will kind of comfortably fit in that gap there. Okay, so that's kind of about the tension that you want it to be at when you start tuning up. Okay, so at this point, I grab a tuner and I would tune this string up to E. Okay, so I've got my tuner now. I'm just using the guitar tuner app on my iPhone, which is just, you know, cool little tuner app that does the job. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and tune here up to that E note. So I'm going to just put this here on my thigh, and I'm just going to tune up. Now what's happening here is as I'm tuning up, the tension of the string is being released, which means that the pitch kind of goes up and down because there's tension in the string. Okay, so now I'm at a point where this string is tuned to E, and that's where it needs to be. But because there's loads of tension in the string still, it's slowly stretching out. Now if I just left that, it would stay in tune for a minute or two while I was playing, but it would sound terrible in half an hour. In fact, it'd probably sound terrible in about 5 minutes. So what we need to do is stretch the strings to release that tension that's still there, okay? So the way I do that is I get it at the 12th fret, because the 12th fret is halfway between the bridge and the neck. So I just get it around about the 12th fret and I just pull down. And what I'm doing here, and I also kind of press here, and I basically just stretch the string in multiple places. And the reason I do that is I can then tune up again. Now can you hear how much lower that pitch has gone? That's because I've just stretched the string out. So I'm going to tune back up to E. And then I'm going to stretch it again. Now this time after I stretch, the pitch won't have changed as much because the string is stretched out and there's less flex in there. So we've gone down again. I'm going to tune back up to E. But did you notice how that time it hadn't tuned down as much? That's because there was less slack in the string. So I'm stretching again, and in my experience you need to do this sort of 3 times really, and then it's fine. Okay, so I've stretched the string, and now the string hardly tuned down at all then. Great, so we're now tuned into an open E note there, and that guitar now will stay in tune. So if you repeat that process for the other 5 strings, then what will happen is at the end of that, the guitar will be in tune and it will stay in tune. If you don't stretch out the strings, then for like the next week, you'll be constantly retuning the guitar, as all of that slack comes out of the strings in tiny, tiny increments, and we don't want that. It's miles better just to stretch them out immediately, and then there's, it's done. I hope you found this useful. I'm sure there's some things that I will have missed out, and it might be that there were some steps that I went through a bit too quickly, so apologies if that was the case, but hopefully this has been useful for you. If you've got any questions or anything, let us know, and we can hopefully cover off any points that weren't clear, in the comments, or via email, or in one of our emails or something. We'll figure it out. Let us know if there's anything we've missed here. We want this lesson to be as useful as possible. So if there's anything that we've clearly missed out, please let us know. Okay guys, hope you found this useful, and I'll catch up with you soon.